Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So, the Verge news outlet just released the most scathing story about the company called Foxconn. And I'll explain who they are in just a minute if you've forgotten. This is just one more of Trump's promises made, promises not kept. So here's the deal. Foxconn is a Taiwanese company, and they promised to build a massive manufacturing facility in Wisconsin and other places they planned on expanding. They originally promised to create as many as 50,000 jobs throughout America. So in 2017, Donald Trump and the former Republican governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker, received a very widely shared and lauded photo op. It was on all the news stations. They got credit for working with Terry Gou, who's I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Gou or Gao. He's the founder and CEO of Foxconn. And he vowed that he was going to build this enormous facility in Wisconsin and create at least 13,000 manufacturing jobs for the local residents in that one area. So people were very excited. Wisconsin has been hit hard, after the 2008 debacle and shutdowns that happened with that whole thing and during the Obama administration. And it's one of the reasons why people believe that Wisconsin swung from Obama to Trump. So Trump had promised he was going to bring all these jobs back. Well, after this big photo op and everything, and Trump gets all the credit for it, and everybody's talking about how great he is, but nothing ever materialized. And in 2019, January of last year, a Foxconn employee spilled the beans in a Reuters interview saying, quote, "In Wisconsin, we're not building a factory." Well, after that, Trump tried to do damage control because, of course, he wasn't paying any attention. He didn't put any effort into it. He didn't try to help out because he's lazy. He's the laziest person on earth. So that's why all of his own businesses have failed. So he tries to do damage control. He talks with the founder, Terry Gou, and he makes an additional announcement and says the deal's still on. Now, The Verge has interviewed 19 former employees and then several dozen additional people that were involved in the project. Plus, they reviewed thousands and thousands of pages of public documents. And everyone they spoke with, everything they scoured, essentially describes the same thing, that this entire undertaking was a debacle and a scam. So Trump had called this facility, it was going to be massive. He called it the eighth wonder of the world. So not only did they promise a 20 million square foot building, which never materialized, but Foxconn regularly brought on new hires at the end of the year for what employees referred to as a pump and dump scheme. Here's why that's important. As per the contract with Michigan and Governor Walker, Foxconn was required to have a specific number of employees on the books at the end of each calendar year. That was the requirement in order to receive government funding. Therefore, Foxconn would go out, they'd hire a bunch of people at the end of the year, and then they'd fire those same employees when the new year began. These are people who, some gave up other jobs, some moved. This was a big thing for them, and they were excited. And these people just pulled the rug out from under them. And then in September of this year, this so-called Foxconn factory changed their status. They filed for a permit to change their official intended use from manufacturing to storage. So clearly they're not planning on manufacturing anything. That was just this year. They also say, the employees, that for 2 years, though, Foxconn put on a big show and they tried to make it appear as though progress was being made. Behind the scenes, it was another type of show. It was basically a shit show. Employees complained about having to bring in their own supplies. They had to bring in their own pencils. other stuff, because if not, they would be berated and get yelled at. And they just figured like, oh, it's a new company. They're trying to figure things out. But they were totally cheap. They didn't want to spend any money. The ceilings were leaking with water. Quite often, the elevators wouldn't work. They said that it became almost like an SNL skit because people would get on the elevator and then you would hear screaming because people got stuck. So it was a mess, but there's even worse. So the few employees who were hired say Foxconn quite frequently brought on foreign graduates because they could exploit them with long hours and low wages. Some even went without pay, and they used their immigration status as leverage. So they would threaten them. They also say that many employees sat around with nothing to do. They literally had no jobs. Many say that they didn't even know what their job was supposed to be. They would sit around watching Netflix all day, playing on their phones. They would race around this huge complex and property in these colorful golf carts. Apparently, Foxconn had purchased them for another one of their harebrained ideas, and you're going to hear about some of those. But at one point, they brought on students from nearby colleges to meet their employee quota, but they had no work for them. They had literally nothing for them to do. So people say that the students just sat around, they were watching YouTube all day, or they would spend their time doing homework. And as recently as 2018, the employees were asked to come up with a business plan. So Foxconn originally promised to build an LCD factory, and it kept changing. It would be, oh, we're going to build big LCD screens. Oh, we're going to do little LCD screens. They couldn't figure it out. But then everybody realized they literally had no business plan whatsoever. They did no research into the market. They didn't know what was going to be profitable. One engineer who had been hired told The Verge, quote, "They asked me to create a business in Wisconsin, to come up with a business model, whatever I thought would make money. The most common misunderstanding with Foxconn is people here thought Foxconn had a strategy and a business plan when they were coming into Wisconsin. They did not. They had no plans at all." I mean, how do you not have a plan, but you promise to bring in 13,000 jobs? So they considered a huge range of options for what the facility and the company should actually create or offer. Everything from fish farming to boat storage to exports of dairy products to special event facilities. In the end, this whole thing has cost taxpayers $400 million. The money was handed to Foxconn for land and infrastructure that has literally no intended purpose. And the initial 200 million square foot facility turned out to be only 120,000 square feet. That's all they've built. And even that is not finished and a complete structure. And to make matters even worse, many residents were forced out of their homes under eminent domain laws, and dozens of the homes were bulldozed to make room for this proposed facility that never came to pass. So what happened to Terry Go? Is he going to be held accountable? Well, he stepped down from Foxconn, and you're not going to believe this, but it is 100% true. He stepped down from Foxconn after claiming that, quote, "a sea goddess had appeared to him in a dream and told him to run for president of Taiwan." No, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding, not even one little bit. So he ran for president. He apparently came in second place in the primary. So now he still maintains some sort of relationship with Foxconn. He allegedly toured this shell of a facility as recently as this month, October 2020. But Trump should have known better. So this appears to be yet another one of Trump's shell games and hyperbole, because if he had looked at Go's history as The Verge did, he would have known this guy is infamous for making these grand pronouncements and then not following through. So The Verge notes 5 other instances in which this same exact thing occurred. So from Vietnam in 2007 to India in 2015. He comes out, he promises to build all these huge facilities, bring in all these jobs, and then nothing ever comes of it. So Go, however, blames Trump's trade war with China. He says that it was their, quote, biggest challenge. And Wisconsin state Republicans are trying to pin the failures on the newly elected Democratic governor, Tony Evers. So this is like circular firing squad. But employees and potential Foxconn suppliers confirm this company was a ruse. One military veteran named Chris told The Verge that he attended a Foxconn career fair in 2018. And here's what he said about this whole debacle. Quote, "It was such a charade, looking back on the whole thing." He said that he was hired. He went to this job fair. He was told that he was hired and he would start in 2 weeks. So Chris quit his existing job. But after 2 weeks passed and he didn't hear from them, he reached out and Foxconn said, "Oh, we're trying to find the perfect fit for you." Then he reached out again and he was told that they planned to place him on a different team, but the leaders of the team that he was going to be placed on were in China. They won't be back for another 2 weeks. So now he's over a month out. Finally, they said, "Okay, come to Milwaukee, come meet with us, and we're going to work on this and get you going." And then they canceled. So Chris finally moved on. He found another job and he said, quote, "I just realized there was no there. Now, whenever I see them in the news, I laugh and flip the channel because I don't believe any of it. I just wonder at the end of the day, what was their end game? What did Foxconn get out of it? Why the elaborate statewide charade?" I'd like to know that too. And this year, Foxconn promised that LCD production would begin in May. And Governor Tony Evers even seemed to believe it and fall for it. He said, "Oh, I never doubted Foxconn." But then Foxconn shifted focus again. They installed a new leader. And then they shifted gears again and said, "Oh, we're going to manufacture vending machines and we're going to become an artificial intelligence institute." So the whole thing is just, it's laughable. If it wasn't sad, I mean, if people hadn't lost their homes over this, if people hadn't given up reliable jobs for this scam and been tricked into this, it would be one thing. But this seems to be some sort of mutually beneficial con game. And again, like this other guy said, what did Foxconn get out of it? You know, only time will tell. We clearly know what Trump got out of it. He got this great photo op and people thought, "Oh, this is so great. This guy is who he says he is. Look at, he's already bringing jobs to the country and he just started. He's a joke." Anyway, guys, as always, like, share, subscribe. Thank you for listening and watching, and take care. I will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.